Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's training industry demo, Choosing an LMS That Lasts, What Most Buyers Miss the First Time, sponsored by ExpertusONE. And I am Liz Fate, the events marketing specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Before we get started, though, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. So if you haven't done so already, let's open up those chat windows and let us know where you're joining us from today. I am broadcasting live from sunny Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's just a pleasure to have you with us here today. And while you're doing so, feel free to use this chat window to interact with your speaker with any comments as well as questions. We will be addressing questions at the end of today's session, but please do not hesitate to plug them throughout. And additionally, we would love to hear about what you learned from today's session on social media. So please follow ExpertusONE on LinkedIn and hashtag TI webinars as you share your favorite takeaways with your colleagues. And when this webinar ends, you should receive a short evaluation survey. We always welcome your feedback on things like the content, speakers, topics, or anything else you would like to share with us. So be sure to complete that survey after the event. And as always, today's webinar will be recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us that will include a link to the on-demand program for you to share with your team. Now, if you've attended one of our programs in the past, thank you so much for joining us again. And this is your first webinar with us, welcome. At Training Industry, we offer dozens of webinars with subjects ranging from AI, analytics, to onboarding, upskilling, and reskilling. We cover about every topic relevant to leaders of training organizations around the globe. And now to get the party started, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers today. We have Greg, who's a Senior Learning Advisor at ExpertusONE with more than 18 years of experience helping enterprise organizations make smart, confident LMS and learning technology decisions. And then we have Eric, is a learning technologies evangelist with a 15-year track record of innovating in the learning industry. So with that, gentlemen, take it away.
Great. Thanks a lot, Liz. Appreciate it. Liz, I don't know if you saw, we had someone raise their hand. So I don't know if there's already a question before we get started. And while I'm sharing my screen.
Oops, they already removed their hand. So it might have been an accident, but good eye.
I figured I'd ask. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. My name is Greg Basher. I am a senior learning advisor here at, oh, hold on a second. I just lost my whole screen. Bear with me 1 minute. Sorry. Can you guys see me or hear me? Everything's good?
Both are good, and the demo is good.
So, sorry about that. Just a minor glitch there. So no, I appreciate everyone taking the time today. Like I said, I'm Greg Basher. I'm a senior learning advisor here at ExpertusONE. With me, I have Farrah Farazaj, principal solution consultant. Like Liz said, we have a lot of experience in the market, so we've seen a lot of things, and we like to share, what we're learning in the industry, as we go here. So just really quickly, for attending today's webinar, you will all have access to our free guide on how to build an LMS RFP without losing your mind. My colleague Sebastian is putting the link to download the guide in the chat right now, so feel free to take a look at that if that's helpful to you. We're happy to provide that for you. So, we figured we'd start the session today with a quick poll. If you wouldn't mind answering the question, we're curious to know what prompted your interest in today's session. Are you just looking to stay informed about current trends and best practices in the LMS market? Are you exploring new ways to improve your learning programs? Are you looking to understand what newer LMS platforms are capable of? Or are you evaluating possible options for a future evaluation? And then finally, are you actively looking for a new LMS right now? So we'll give it a minute to have the folks answer these questions here. I'm looking at some of the results on the screen. Looks like most are choosing the middle option, just looking to understand what the newer LMS platforms can do. And that's kind of what we expected in this type of a webinar. That's very common. But yeah, it looks like it's actually fairly even as we're getting more. So by all means, Liz, I think if you want to wrap up that and show the results, I think that'd be good at this point in time.
Here are those results.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Liz. Appreciate that. So just kind of moving along here. Again, thanks for everyone answering the question in the poll. So let's get started, on today's topic, choosing an LMS that lasts, what most buyers miss the first time around. Because we see that is a pretty big problem when it comes to folks looking at a new LMS. So learning environments evolve, right? The needs expand. It's like an iceberg. Above the surface, you all know exactly what your needs are today. However, below the surface, is where the problems come into play. That's the stuff that you may not see very clearly. Usually, the requirements that pop up when you least expect them to. I've been in this industry now for almost 19 years. The below surface items that I've seen sink L&D teams and their platforms include expanding audiences, from employees to customers and to partners. Also going global. Not long ago, most multinational companies were using different learning systems in each of their regions. Today, consolidation of technology is ruling the day, which is a good thing. Compliance requirements keep changing and growing. Your internal teams are becoming more aware of what's available in the market, and they start to ask for more, right? They have more requirements. There's more and different use cases on how they want to use learning and learning technology. New AI expectations have also popped up and come to the forefront. And maybe most importantly, there's more pressure on L&D teams to achieve faster business change, right? To help, streamline the organization, streamline what they're doing, and how they're benefiting the organization as well. These are all things that sink the ship if you and the learning technology are not prepared for them. So we want to help you today kind of avoid that sinking of the ship. Unfortunately, the old LMS model can't keep up with most of the items that are lurking below that surface. The old model was, nice and neat. You needed to train your employees using a handful of tried and true programs. You ran simple, basic reports, and maybe you integrated the LMS with your HR system or maybe a BI tool. That's all changing now in today's landscape. Your programs are expanding, your requirements are changing, your administration deepens, your audience diversifies as well. Your governance becomes harder, and integrations increase and become more complex. There's a good chance that your LMS, your current LMS, can't keep up with those changes. Let's face it, when you first bought your first LMS or your current LMS, you're most likely choosing a system that worked for you several years ago. With the new trends and technologies that are available on the market, does what you have still work now? Better yet, will it work for you in 3 years? So that's the big question that we're trying to help folks solve. So some easy ways to determine whether you're on the brink of hitting that iceberg that sits below the surface are, the effort to administer the system is rising. Support for new use cases slows down. You find yourself, creating more and more spreadsheets and creating workarounds for your workflows. Frustration amongst your learners and your administrators starts to grow, and reporting in general becomes much more difficult. Customizations from your LMS provider have to increase because they need to kind of, add some things on the fly, and you have difficulty supporting and segmenting your multiple audience in a clean manner. So, which brings me to, what decision most buyers regret. And again, I've been in this industry a long time. The most common thing I hear when talking to prospects and new customers is, well, that's not how we used to do it, or, that's not how we do it today. That's absolutely right. You have to embrace change. You're out there looking to buy a new LMS for a reason. Why would you want to keep doing, what you're doing if it's not working for you? So when you choose for today only, you're missing out on what can be in the future. When you choose for growth, you experience the upside of change, right? And you improve your scalability, your operational complexity, the governance over your audiences. It also allows you to adapt to changing environments and allows your administrators to gain some sustainability in their roles as well. So the point of today's session is to help you build a better framework for evaluating LMS platforms. You want to evaluate for long-term adaptability, not just your short-term requirements. And I can't stress that enough. That's the biggest thing that we see is everyone is always buying for exactly what I need today. They're not taking into account enough what will we need to do tomorrow, right? This goes back to supporting new and different audiences, making it easier for administrators to handle complex use cases, addressing your future needs and the future needs of the organization as a whole, having an architecture that is adaptable and can support not only a growing number of users, but also segmenting those users, with the right information that's always available, and making sure that you're presenting the right stuff to the right people at the right time, right? Making sure that everyone has a user experience that will remain manageable as your programs grow. Because as those programs grow, things will get a little bit more complex, not only for the people that are running the LMS, but it's for the learners that are using it as well. You want to try to avoid that complexity as much as possible. So you want something that's easy to use and seamless as you make changes throughout your life cycle there. So what does an LMS that is built for complexity actually look like? It's something that's adaptable over time, flexible, scalable, provides simplicity for your administrators, supports all of the different audiences that you have. Like I said, internal versus external, and those externals could be anyone from customers to partners or whoever. You want to also include the extended enterprise. Like I said, all of those external people that sit outside the organization and provide some level of automation as well. Today, that automation mostly done through AI. This will not only help solve some of the items in this diagram, it's also going to help streamline a lot of the processes that you have internally, helping your L&D team to become more efficient and really make a little bit bigger of a difference within the organization as well. So that AI, embracing that AI, I know in some industries is a little tougher than others, but embracing that AI and change in general will really help you as you move forward with your learning programs. So before I hand it off to Farrick for an actual demo of the ExpertusONE platform, just wanted to start another poll as well. Which capability matters most in a modern learning platform? Is it flexibility, ease of administration, integrations with other systems, reporting and analytics, the learner experience, or is it AI and automation like I just talked about? We'll give you a few seconds to enter your responses here. So as we see, again, pretty even so far in the responses. Looks like the learner experience and the reporting and analytics are winning out, which is, again, kind of what we expected. And now the reporting and analytics are starting to take a little bit of a lead. So again, something that we hear quite often, something that we've addressed. I think Farrick will show a little bit of what we can do in that respect during the demo. But yeah, this is pretty much what I expected. The AI and automation looks like is coming in last. And again, what we expect. Everybody's talking about AI, but not a lot of folks have a real strategy around AI yet. They don't necessarily know exactly what they're going to do with it in a learning technology setting. So, not surprised to see that happening. So, Liz, I think we're good there. I think you can stop and produce the results of that poll. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Farrick for the demo. I'll be monitoring the chat if you guys have any questions for me during the chat. But Farrick, you can go ahead and take it away. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Can you move to the next screen, Greg?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I shared it already. Hold on.
That's okay.
And now let me. Oh, here it is. Share.
You good, or should I take over?
Yeah. Got it. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. If you could move to the next one. Yeah. Thanks, Greg. And hi, everyone. My name is Farrick Farizaj. I'm a principal solution consultant here. So I'm going to take you through the journey of how ExpertusONE is resolving this challenge, right? We want a platform that's easy to manage, easy to deploy for those immediate use cases that you need, but also kind of on the back end, but also a platform that has the power and the depth to expand. So there's three components that we believe we put together that resolve this, right? So we have that LMS, platform, traditional learning to handle your compliance and things like that, very robust, but also that LXP, right? So we want to provide employees with career paths and things like that. And then the skills. The other component is we want to potentially train customers and partners. We want to do e-commerce. And now AI is becoming, it's becoming a thing now that a lot of customers are expecting. At least they're curious. How can AI help us, make the platform more efficient, et cetera? So that's the ExpertusONE. We feel like we hit the sweet spot of having the depth on the platform that allows you to meet your current needs, but also easily bends to future use cases when you want to expand it. So we want to give you a glimpse into kind of how we do that. So let me, Greg, you can stop sharing now. And so I'm going to take over. So I'm going to give you a next 25 minutes or so, drill down into from several different perspectives, kind of how ExpertusONE is doing that, right? So first, I wanted to kick things off on the back end, right? So, we have administrators that manage the platform, and we put a lot of effort on that to make it easy and responsive and personalizable. And we like to call it a breeze for administrators, right? For those use cases, you log in, give me a dashboard, give me a high-level 30,000-foot view, drill down, and make it easy for me to easily kind of manage the platform. So every administrator is able to personalize these views and quickly go to the features that they work with. But what about scenarios where we want to add more things? We want to add more complexity, right? So for example, perhaps, you may start with initial domain, just one domain, and then you find out that you need to train another department, another region, etc. So we have one domain here, but what about training customers? And we want a different experience and we want to hardwall that data between. I can easily come up here and create a new domain, brand that domain, etc. So again, easy to manage existing use case, but easy to expand to those different use cases as they come. As we find, I've been in this industry for a long time. Again, things, use cases just tend to get more complex as you start kind of using the platform, right? So you resolve initially for just the existing use case, and then you drill down into that. So initial configuration for me, for Clara Anderson, very simple, right? So we want to manage users and learner groups and content, etc. But perhaps down the road we want to add some more depth into it, right? So what are some of those things we want to add? Maybe skill. We want to upskill our employees. We want to do corporate-driven skilling. I can add that e-commerce. I'm able to kind of turn those features on and off. I can enable those very easily here. We want to manage classroom-based training, virtual training, assessments, all of those different things. You can see here how you have the ability to easily manage those, put in your dashboard, and you're able to, personalize that view and then check it. Everyone logs in, maybe a different business unit, they come in, they have a completely different area of the platform that they're personalizing. So they can configure that experience the way they want it, right? So let's take a look at some of these different things that we brought to bear here to bring that kind of the easy part to bear, right? So for administrators, backend tends to be very, it's kludgy and clicky and all of that from legacy platforms. So we want to make it easy, that experience here for Clara Anderson and as we add a new administrator. So very efficient process to come up here and manage people. We came up with this idea of personalization down to the last mile functionality, right? So let's say you're managing a global organization and you're overseeing, hundreds of different business units all over the country, et cetera. So we came up with this idea of I can personalize views down to the last mile for the way that I work with that business unit, right? So of course you can come up here and filter, et cetera, but then I can create these personalized filters. I can come up here and say, oh, I'm looking for active users who are hired, in a certain date, maybe this year, perhaps I can come up here and filter that. You can add, this country, this organization, etc. And then you can apply that filter and then save that filter. I apply too many filters here. It looks like I can save that and it becomes a drop-down filter for me next time. It's not 10 clicks, it's a single click. So it just makes it very efficient for me. These are previous filters that I've created. I want to go to new hires, I want to go to instructors, etc. So it's very efficient process for me to manage people. Another concept about efficiency and ease of use, whatever is showing up in my screen, we brought like 75% of functionality under this quick access to make it efficient for administrators to manage things, right? So I have people here. What do you normally do? Well, I want to maybe drill down into what their enrollments are, what their training history, who's their manager, etc. So think of a quick access makes things efficient to manage whatever is showing in my screen. It's people, it's content, it's courses, it's a certification program. It's the same concept, the same concept throughout the whole platform. We have a lot of automation built in, so we have the ability to come up here and create these audiences. We call them learner groups, right? So we want to automatically distribute some content out there to floor technicians, whatever. So I've created some examples here. And so we can automate that process, create these rules and then distribute that content to people in a very efficient way to your learners. Another major theme that kind of brings the depth, but also the kind of the ease of use, is we have a built-in kind of content hub or LCMS, right? So content, very important and very hard to manage content when it comes to learning management, right? So, and it may be residing in people's computer, et cetera. So we came up with this idea of centralize all of it, all the content you have, structured, unstructured, SCORM, AICC, you can bring it here, house it here, manage it here, load it here. And then we came up with this concept of a single object, multiple usages, where if I go, for example, to versions, content version, I can see all the different assets that they're being used. So here's a piece of asset here. I can see how many places being used. And, maybe it's used in 10 different courses. Instead of trying to chase down those different courses, across different business units, I can just come up here and add a version, and it's going to propagate that across the whole business unit where those courses are being used. Talking about content, AI is infused throughout the whole platform. I know that's still kind of everyone is getting used to that. We trying to bring AI in all the different areas where it adds efficiency, right? So of course you can load your own content, or you can use our AI built engine to create content here. So for subject matter experts, you can grant them access to this module where they can come up here and create content from scratch. So it's not just kind of chat GPT though. It's really more driven towards kind of purpose-driven content creation for content creators and subject matter experts, right? So what does that mean? Well, for example, I can use the RAG, the company's specific RAG, where it's all the references are coming from there. It's not just generic content from the internet. Or I can provide additional references that are relevant to me now, just specifically for this course. I want to create a course here, and I say, use these videos, use documents to help me create that asset. And then there's some guardrails here that walks you through the process of what is this content is intended for, right? So it's going to help content creators, through that process instead of trying to wonder how to do this, right? So what do you want to create this? Takes you through the whole process of creating that content. The nice thing that we added here, there's this checkpoints that make it easy for content creators, subject matter experts to intervene in that process, right? So I can come up here and ask, hey, here's the outline. You can intervene in that outline, et cetera. So I created some previously here just to show you. So because it takes a few minutes to kind of complete that content creation process. Here's an example. So you can create the asset, but the last part here is you can add interactivity and engagement, right? So it's not just the PDF, it's not just a video stale, kind of not engaging. I'm able to come up here and add some interactions and single choice set of questions, etc. And then I publish that to the content hub where it becomes available to me. So I have the ability to do that, makes things very efficient for me to manage content. It's centralized. Bring content from third party, bring your own content, whether it's formal or informal, or use our AI tools to kind of complement the content that you're creating. So depending on how you want to do it, makes that process very, very efficient for you. And then from there, we can, do all the different things like deploy, classroom-based training, e-learning training, create certification programs. So let's drill a couple of different areas here. So now I'm looking at my e-learning course that I've created, right? So very efficient process, right? So common features show up here. We want to make it easy for administrators to manage that process. So, hey, I want to grant, some of those learners access to this, right? So which groups get access to this training? I can come up here and, easily tag those groups there. Another kind of efficiency thing that we brought in here is AI filters. Just think, especially if you have like very complex organization and I have worked with this organization, I have tens of thousands of courses, and they're tracking as many as 50 fields. So we came up with this concept of AI filters. Instead of me going out here and saying, oh, click 20 different places to find what I'm looking for, you can use natural language processing to actually find what you're looking for. And that can incorporate a lot of different filters. So I can come up here and list all the active courses marked as compliant, or find me all courses that have video, etc. Nice thing, it finds it immediately for me. I don't have to worry about how to like filter this out, etc. The other nice thing here, I can save that as a personalized template. So my natural language processing becomes a filter for me next time to use there as a drop-down option. Lots of robust functionality for compliance, which is, frequently that's kind of a lot of organizations are starting with, right? So what is it? Well, we need to do compliance training, right? So we have a lot of robust functionality around that to automate that process. So we can create programs. So here's an example. I have a certified facility operations certification program. I set up the structure around, what this program is all about, right? How many courses, and they could be e-learning and classroom learning and third party, etc. But we can do a lot of automation. For example, a lot of vendors will be like, oh, yeah, we have that. But then what happens next year? I can come up here and enable this recertification path, and I can actually have a different path for the next year. Instead of like, oh, you have to repeat this every year. Next year, we're just going to do a refresher. Maybe we drop one of the courses, and then the rules are slightly different. So this is what I mean by that kind of the depth component, right? So we have the ability to go a little bit beyond just kind of the basic use cases. One other thing I wanted to pull up here, let me go up to pull up an example of the course, right? So keeping with that theme of um, easy and but also have the depth. So for the sake of time, I'm going to pull up this course that's already been created here, right? So very simple. Usually, what do I want to do? I have a course. It has a title, description, etc., due dates. That's pretty straightforward. I can build it up, reuse assets in the repository, right? That's pretty straightforward. So, but very frequently we find out that, oh, guess what? We actually need to do prerequisites. 6 months in, we need to do equivalencies, and equivalencies are not very simple. We actually want to have things count as equivalent only if you did it within the last year, etc. We want to do assessment. We want to do post-assessment. We want to do observation checklist, right? On the job training. Studies show out there that if you introduce this OJT component to training, it tends to increase effectiveness of learning. So we have that basic and easy to set up, for things that you may need immediately, but also the depth should you need to go there. You don't always need to do all these things. You don't always have to associate skills, for example, or checklists, but you may need it, or some of your business units may need it, and they're able to very efficiently do that. There's a built-in, not everyone is going to use skills. Not everyone is going to use, corporate-driven skills, but for those business units that do, we have the ability to come that, enable that feature very easily, expand to that, create efficiency models. We also have a feature called corporate-driven learning, upskilling. What does that mean? Most organizations are doing some aspect of skills. A lot of vendors support that somewhat, but we're doing now something called corporate driven learning. We have a project out there. Maybe I'm opening up new business. I want to find people that have a certain base skill. People who have this role, who have this skill, etc., and I want to upskill them for that project. So that's a little bit unique that you don't necessarily find, a lot of vendors doing that. So we bring that to bear. AI is all over the place. We have AI assessment creation. I can come up here. Let's say I have a video, I have a document presentation, and I want to create a quick 10, question AI assessment. You don't have to go manually and do it. You can come up here and say, well, let's go ahead and do it. Here's a document. Draw from this document. You can see how much efficiency that adds instead of you going through that process. I want to pull up 5 questions. You can configure kind of how you want this. But it makes it very efficient, and you can add that to your courses. Instead of taking you like 30 minutes to come up here and create this, it's drawing from your documents, it's drawing from your assets. So it's not like creating generic content. You can configure it here. Human in the chain, I'm able to come up here and delete this one, or add a new one, or pull another new one into from the repository. Very easy and efficient to do that. Very robust reporting analytics. One of the things we find, I know reporting is very important, right? So the one thing that I found over the years, there's, a lot of vendors have reporting, but it's like not very consumable, not very easy. So we came up with this idea of personalized reporting. Instead of creating 100 different versions of the report, you consume a report 100 different ways, right? So theme is personalized reporting. So this user here, here's an example, kind of the base view that the report has been drilled and deployed. But me personally, I've added some additional personalization without having to talk to an administrator, for example. And I can come up here and say, oh, I want to go to the engineering services. I'm very easily and efficiently able to do that here, as you can see that. So just think managers are able to do that. The efficiency that you get on that, it's amazing, right? Create 10 reports instead of creating, maybe 100 reports. And again, that extends to all of different use cases for customers, for partners, etc. We have AI analytics as well. I can come up here and maybe I don't even want to run a report, right? So I just want to use natural language processing to do that, right? So not everyone wants to go and filter and run a report. Maybe I'm out there, meaning visiting a certain business unit, etc. Happen to not have this data in front of me, but I know how to query. I know how to use ChatGPT and all these other tools, so you can come up here and interact with it. And so instantaneous access, instantaneous, so you have validity right there against the site. You're out there, you're visiting a country or a business unit, et cetera, and you have the data immediately out there. So it just makes the usability of the platform really a lot more efficient. Let's see. I did want to show you one more example that we had. So again, AI analytics, kind of all over the place, all the ways where it adds efficiency. Now we're adding something called agentic AI, where agent are actually going to be able to perform these tasks for you. So instead of me going out there and like, oh, find these courses, these learning plans, etc., skills, whatever. What about just I come up here and instruct the learning platform to do this task for me, right? Enroll the following learners into this course, unenroll them, remove them, all of these different tasks. So you can see like, how efficient that is, especially like if you're bringing in new business units, you don't necessarily have to do a lot of training for these administrators. So it makes that whole process of managing the platform a lot more efficient. So that's a little bit of kind of on the back end. Again, easy is important. We want to make it easy. We want to make it efficient. We like to say we make it a breeze, for administrators to manage it. But also you have that depth there when you need it. You don't always need it, but it's very easy to add an additional thing, an additional module. I can expand it. I wanted to add e-commerce. It's right there. It's not me having to rethink, oh, gee, we implemented this platform. We didn't really think about this other use case. And ExpertusONE, we really kind of have a holistic view on it. You start with the core, you enable it, all the features that you need. They're easy and efficient to kind of deploy and all of that, but though it extends to all of these other use cases in a very efficient way. So that's kind of what it looks like a little bit on the back end. Let's drill down into some of the other roles. So I've set up on the back end, as you saw there, very easy, very efficient. You can configure different features however you want it. So switching gears here to a learner experience, right? So I've deployed everything. Could be an employee, could be a customer, partner, etc. We can create all of these different experiences. So this is Robert Miller. And so we came up with this idea of we want to make that experience very efficient for learners, right? So kind of single page, you know, 70-80% of things I need to do are accessible with a single click, 2 clicks or less. You can turn all the bells and whistles on or off, but the whole process for learner is very efficient. So up top, some great tools to allow you to communicate, interact with your customers, with your partners, with your customers, depending what you're doing here, right? So alerts, right? So remember we talked about that. I'm able to push those alerts. Version control. Hey, I updated a product. I want to alert customers on that. So we talked about how easy it is to make the change on the back end for administrator, but also now we're pushing that change to customer. It's a single click. Hey, there's a new version of this asset. Product has been updated, policy, company has been changed. I can easily access that and take care of it. I can see any alerts. By the way, e-commerce, you don't have to turn that on, obviously, for employees, but for customers, you can turn that on. And I can come up here and purchase training and courses and all of that. You can have these banners to make that process of uh, you know, um, eh, promoting things, courses, compliance. What is the most important thing that you want to promote for this type of learner, for employee, for customers? You can use these banners to promote that. And then a little click here. I'm into my learning. So these are personalized journeys driven by those learner groups that we talked about. We have content dripping, etc. So it's all kind of it's chasing the user the way the user is interacting with it. It's not just going to necessarily drop everything to them. It's going to look at how they're interacting with content. Are they completing? Are they failing? So it's going to drip it in a more kind of thoughtful process. But here's kind of all the content that's been pushed out to Robert Miller. So various way to configure these, make it busy, make it clean, personalization, again, there you decide how you want to sort that through. But I can come up here and, see what the training is all about. Maybe I want to continue where I last left. So here's some training where I last left. Maybe I was on the app and now I'm continuing at work. I can come up here and consume that asset. One thing I'll point here, we track everything at ExpertusONE, right? So, everyone can do SCORM, AICC, and TICAN, or most vendors. We're really going beyond that. You can track, you can turn, your videos, your documents, your presentations, you trackable asset without feeding them through through an authoring tool, right? So you have the ability to just bring everything here. So that's an example of a course, pretty straightforward video course. Here's another one where we're depth, for those cases where we need to add the depth. Perhaps we want to do things like we want to do a pre-assessment or a post-assessment, etc. We have the ability to to easily add and as the depth when we need it to. So here's an example where we have complexity when we need it. Airport floor cleaner technician course. Well, we had a pre-assessment. We want to pre-assess the learner here. And then maybe we want to do, content. Pre-assessment can be used to test out, for measuring the knowledge that the learner is bringing in. And then we want to do a post-assessment. So you can create all of those different use cases, for what various needs that you have. Again, simplicity when you need it, but also the depth there when, certainly comes usually based on our experience. We have the ability to deploy these paths, certification programs, very efficient. We talked about this and automate that process. Here's some training, and then the system kind of runs an autopilot from there. So that's more of a kind of traditional type training that we need employees to do, compliance-based, etc. And then we also have AI type catalog, open catalog, LXP. What else is out there? We want to empower our employees to go and learn and maybe purchase training for customers. Here's kind of an example of that. A couple of different ways to deploy that Netflix type approach. Most recent, most micro learning, most shared, etc. Or bring the AI in there where it's going to make recommendation for you. So AI all over the place. Company can make recommendation, manager can make recommendations. Another feature we recently added is getting some rave reviews is how do we access learning data? Like, of course, we can run those reports, etc. But now, employee themselves, maybe they're out there in the field, they need to validate some certification, etc. So we created this one profile feature that allows them to self-validate. You can put in your LinkedIn, you can share it in your phone. You're out there on site, and somebody's asking, "Do you have these training, the certification?" So yeah, they can pull up on their phone, and they have the ability to very efficiently self-validate against our website, right? So very efficient process. Now, in those use cases where we want to do a more formal kind of career pathing, we can turn that feature on where it's more of a guided approach. It's not just go out there, find new courses. Here's where you stand against current role. Here's what you need to do to become, let's say, a site leader, and it gives you kind of the whole path there. So you don't always need all of these features all at once, but the beauty of it is you just turn them on as you need it for the business unit that you need. Another thing I know we're coming towards the end here is accessibility is very important, right? So, okay, this is one way for learners to go and consume training, very common, but we can bring learning where the learner is. So we also have this concept of, okay, maybe you're in Salesforce. Well, we can bring learning there. We have a Salesforce app. We have something called headless player where maybe your customers out there, they're on completely another website, maybe in the software, maybe, completely not related to learning, we can actually deploy the headless player there where they consume the context in completely unrelated kind of workflows out there. But it's trackable. It's not just a video. It's actually sending the data. Doesn't look like an LMS, but it is it's performing all the LMS functions. What about if I were, heavy users of MS Teams, right? Everyone is using MS Teams now. What if we bring learning there? Well, we can. Especially for those use cases where, the population is literally spending all their time in MS Teams. You can just go and you don't have to do any of this stuff. You can just go on MS Teams and launch training, register for training, interact with training, etc. All of that there. And then similarly, we have an app. I'll switch gears here a little bit. If I can show that real briefly. So it's not just on the web. It's not just on these other places. We have an app. Maybe you can push notifications. We had a client recently. We're like, well, they don't really like to go to the web. The only thing they use is the app, and we need to have push notification. They're out there in the field. That's the only thing. That's the only way we can get them to do training. Well, guess what? We have that, and it's there. You only need to use it for those use cases where you need it. So that's a little bit kind of an overview of the platform, kind of how we're resolving this challenge of simplicity, but with the depth, with the easy way to kind of extend to these other use cases. So tried to give you a little glimpse on that. If there's any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we can answer them as well. Greg, did you want to see if any questions there?
Yep. Yeah, sorry, Fark. Yeah, there's a few questions. I was able to answer most of them already. One question that Summer just asked was that in regards to the headless player, can it handle SCORM and videos? Does it appear iframed? And how does it handle authorization credential logins when it's served up to other locations? I know it can
Yeah.
handle SCORM videos, all the content that's available in the LMS. As far as the iframe, Farrick, I wasn't sure
Yeah,
how.
yeah, it's we basically detach the player essentially from the LMS and it plays all the content. To answer your question in a very short way, all of the content. Squirm, AICC, Tin Can, video,
Right.
all of that. And it's doing the authorization in the back end, but to the user, it's just it looks like a page there basically. So we effectively detach the player from LMS while keeping that link basically to the LMS behind the scenes.
Kirk, does it show up as an iframe or does it show up differently? I I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head because I'm not technical. But
No, it's not. It's not an iframe actually. It just plays on the page. We can. Yeah, I don't think I have that at the moment to show, but it's not an iframe type technology where it's like blocking pop-ups or anything like that. It's kind of in-page content player effectively, the same way that I was playing earlier, but it's on another site. So there's no kind of iframe technology there.
one other question that came in, Farrick, and I'm not quite sure if you can show this if you have this available on the demo site. I'm looking for the actual question. Bruno had asked, can we see examples of courses that were created with the platform? That's when you were showing CCE3. I don't know if you have anything that was actually created with CCE3 on the demo site right now, but I told Bruno that we could always show some things later on if we need to.
Yeah, I showed a little bit an example of it. Some of those assets were actually created with with the authoring tool. So yeah, so this is kind of an example of a PDF, but like very simple use case where like, oh, and then there's some interactions here, but you can get more fancy in here. But the point about this is it's not just a stale document like, hey, create this PDF, create a video. It has these interactions throughout in. So we incorporated kind of all the different steps that you normally use as a content creator, instructional designer. And then we're just adding efficiencies to that process, but with the human in the loop where you're able to amend and make changes throughout the whole step. So create the content, Context is your organization, it's your documents, we call it it's RAG. It's pulling all from your information,
Right.
but then add those interaction as well. So there's some examples here that have been created here. Yeah.
Just one more question, Ferric, that came in. I answered the first part, and I just realized I didn't answer the second part, or I think it was your first question.
Yeah.
Curious to know about how the system handles recertification. That's something I should not have missed because we do that very, very well. And I've worked
Yeah.
with LMS I work for. We handle recertification better than any other platform that I've worked with. So, Ferric, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so the nice thing, right? Generally, like, oh, you set up a program and there's certain rules applied to it, and that's great. That's kind of how a lot of vendors are doing it. What we have the ability to, and then you may have missed it, I touched on it a little bit because of the time, but we can apply recertification rules that are different, right? So for first year, you have, like it's 15 courses and there's certain rules, and you have 10 days to complete it, etc. For the following year, we can actually apply the rules now how to configure, and it may be a different way that we want the program to behave, but we can apply the rules now and it's all automatic. It's happening. So a lot of, my experience, they're like, oh, next year we want things to behave differently. What do you have to do? Well, you're going to have to create a new program for that with a lot of platforms. Here with ExpertusONE, we actually have kind of some depth to that where we can have different recertification rules going forward. Initially, this is what you have to do. This is the rules. This is the conditions. But then going forward, we want to change things differently. And so we can automate all of that process.
All right. Thanks, Ferric.
Yep.
Liz, I know you popped on, so I know we're out of time.
We are, gentlemen, but you went through a lot of content, a lot of
Yeah.
questions. So is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience today before we officially say our goodbyes?
No, like I said, just thanks again for the time we enjoy doing these types of things, maybe to hopefully spark some questions, get you guys to think maybe a little bit differently about what you're doing in this session, especially, how to approach an evaluation of platforms. Sebastian put my calendar link in the chat as well. So if anyone wants to talk further, by all means, hit me up on the calendar link. Find some time in my calendar, and love to talk to you a little bit further if need be. And my email address is on the screen right now as well.
Perfect. I will be stealing the screen now. However, we will be sending that deck out later today. So if you didn't have time to catch the email or the QR code, we will be sending that soon. But thank you so much, gentlemen.
Okay.
Yeah, for everyone else though who are still on the call, I do invite you for some more up and coming events this month. We have a busy month and we have a new event called Voices L&D. So totally check out all of our events on our calendar. There's some really good ones this month, as well as this one, because you can also watch this one. We will put it on the site end of day, so you can even watch even past ones all the way through a year. And additionally, you can when you watch our webinars, it is pre-qualified for a credit hour by HRCI, SHRM, ISPI, and CPTM. So for CPTM, you'll just put that in your tracker. And then for everyone else, you can send an email to me and we will send you those codes. If you are like, what is CPTM, Liz? It is the Certified and Professional and Training Management Program that assists you in developing core competencies that will empower you to manage the future training needs of your organization. So you can find more information at trainingindustry.com/training. And I would love to meet you all here in Raleigh, North Carolina for our 2026 Training Industry Conference and Expo. TICE is where learning leaders like you gather to forge new professional connections, you learn from each other, and you address your most pressing learning challenges. So I hope to see you all here next month. And lastly, that evaluation survey should have popped open another tab in your browser, and we would appreciate hearing your feedback from today's session. Again, thank you so much to our amazing speakers today and our sponsor, ExpertusONE. But lastly, I do thank you all for your time and attention today. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will see you all very soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.